Welcome to Adventures in Education, a program that spotlights positive things happening in the world of education in Southern Oregon. I'm John Letts. Not all education takes place in the classroom. People in Southern Oregon and Northern California can learn about the world, the music, arts, and news of the day from Jefferson Public Radio. There's nothing new about that. From local college station to regional powerhouse of quality, the bright voices of open minds have been our companions over the years, even if we've never seen the faces that go with those voices. That commitment to enriching lives and objective news coverage is as alive today as it's ever been. Only now, JPR broadcasts from a new state-of-the-art facility. It's a result of the recent construction on Southern Oregon University campus. For these broadcasters, it's literally a climb out of the basement into the light of day. The stuffy, crowded basement of Central Hall to the new Performing Arts Building. CEO Paul Westell showed us around the new facility and talked with us about how the JPR broadcasters, the university, and the community will reap benefits from this newly constructed broadcast center. The first thing we noticed was the light, airy atmosphere of the place. A healthy place to work, with a generous amount of windows. I was especially impressed with the size and openness of the newsroom. As a place where local news is produced, this newsroom provides the space for full-time reporters, students, and others who do their vital work here. One unique feature is the studio, where musicians can perform in a space built for great acoustics and state-of-the-art broadcasting and recording equipment.
Covers that, and it gives us a good acoustic treatment. It goes all the way so no one walks in. And then this here, the idea is after a live session, if we do a studio live session, that we want to get as best good audio as we can, we'll do that first. And then these doors here open up. And so the idea here is that we can eventually turn a group around and then have them perform out this way with a live audience kind of out in the plaza area here. So get a sponsor involved, pay the band something, and have them do a short set at noontime or something on the campus. Get students involved, get the campus community involved, use social media, get the JPR audience involved, donors, contributors. So that's sort of the vision of this particular room.
The audio booth overlooks the performance space. There's some powerful audio processing equipment here, capable of mixing musical input to very high audio standards. That audio can then be recorded and be broadcast live. I know I'm using the term state-of-the-art often in this episode, but from what I saw, the term fits. Jefferson Public Radio lives very much in the digital world, seen here in the control room for the Jefferson Exchange. Engineering for such a far-flung coverage area requires a huge amount of processing equipment, more likely to endure in this climate-controlled environment. So producer Wanda Borland and I didn't see any of the old analog equipment that may have been cutting edge in the past. No reel-to-reel tape recorders, no clunky tape cartridges, and no splicing blocks with razor blades. Whether it's equipment for recording news reports or production equipment for recording announcements, this is a digital world. But how does all this affect listeners, the community that listens? Well, JPR's Paul Westell got together with us for an interview about that. I first asked Westell about his general impressions of the new facilities. How do you like this new broadcast center?
Well, the facility is a dream come true for us on so many different levels. First and foremost, it's not in the basement, so our folks have a professional environment that's kind of worthy of the talent I think that we've recruited here at Jefferson Public Radio over the years. We've got some really top-notch people, and I'm both professionally and personally just very pleased to be able to put them in a first-class working environment. So, yeah, I'm thrilled. It's really a dream come true. It's everything we had hoped it would be. We've only been here for about 4.5 weeks now, but it's performing great. The people are really happy to be working here, and we're working out some of the technical workflows that have changed since we've been here. But we're totally thrilled.
I've never seen the studios at Central, but I understand it was pretty, say, rudimentary.
Yes, that's a charitable way to describe it. So number one, it was in the basement, so it had no natural light. It had a couple of sort of daylight windows here and there. But mostly why it didn't work, it had a couple of major problems. Number one, it was set up as classrooms. So over the years, JPR will celebrate its 50th anniversary in 2019. So over the years, we've expanded our service from a single service to a multi-service kind of format. So we've got a lot of public radio going on out of this plant, and it was never set up for that. So over the years, we took over these classrooms and we scabbed them onto the JPR kind of facility. So some control rooms were hallways to other areas of the studio space. So you had a mic on, so you couldn't go through the one control room to get to the other one. So it was terribly inconvenient to get from place to place. Secondly, the HVAC was never really built for all the equipment that we house in this facility. So there were numerous areas that were just totally hot and without oxygen in the afternoon as people, were in there because there was just inadequate ventilation and HVAC. So this facility has been built for what we do today, and it's also been built with an eye to the future. So how are we going to grow in the future? What areas of the station might expand? Where can we, how can we architecturally lay it out so that we can grow into those spaces in the future? So, it's totally a night and day situation, and like I say, we're thrilled to be here.
JPR has been able to do an incredible number of things considering the confines of that space. Mm-hmm. What do you think will open up now that the space has changed?
Well, we had a kind of a plan on what kind of things programmatically we'd like to do in a new facility. So we built a new live performance space that is really built for doing live kind of events, lifestyle events, whether live to tape or actually live. So, for instance, our live sessions now in the old facility were done in this same studio we do the Jefferson Exchange. So in the morning we do the talk show with Jeffrey Riley from 8 to 10, then we'd have to break that room all down, set it back up for a live session that might happen in the early afternoon, and then re-break it down again and reset it up for the Jefferson Exchange the next morning. So it wasn't very convenient. We never really had the right microphones to do music. We never really, had this technical setup to do it right. So we cobbled together a bunch of things, did it decently, did it pretty well. In a new facility, though, we've got, a multi-channel board made for music in the live performance space. So that's a space dedicated to those kinds of events. It's flexible in that it can be set up in numerous different ways. And we think we can do a whole lot more with visiting musicians as they are out promoting their recorded music and performing in the Valley, that we can get them in here and get them to do a live session on our air and share that with our audience. So that facility is set up for that. Our newsroom was totally cramped in the old facility and completely packed. We couldn't add any additional staff, reporters, and it was very difficult to mentor students because we had to locate students physically away from the folks that would be providing them instruction and mentorship. So now we have a newsroom that is double the capacity of the old facility. So instead of only being able to house 5 journalists, we can house 10, and it provides 2 landing spots for students to be part of our newsroom on a regular basis. We have a full-time SOU student who's an intern this summer who's doing a great job for us. So it enables us to engage the academic side of Southern Oregon University in a more meaningful way, providing better coverage for our listeners and providing a portfolio of multimedia content for a student as they go out and get jobs in journalism and digital arts and the other fields that they're interested in studying.
With such sweeping views of the campus, I asked Westall if he foresaw more collaboration with Southern Oregon University.
I do. I think, when strategically we looked at places to put a facility, that there was land, we were trying to make decisions about, what was best for the station and the university. And being on this beautiful part of the campus, I think only sort of cements our long relationship with the university as our licensee. And I do think it connects us to the campus in a more meaningful way. We cross paths with students and different faculty members. The proximity to the theater department and to the music building creates this kind of center core of the arts and culture departments here on campus. And long term, we hope to install equipment in the music recital hall and the theater building, and basically make any convening space, any place with a stage, kind of a remote JPR studio. So anything that happens in those spaces can be called up on our radio control boards and either recorded for editing and programmatic material, or for live broadcast. So one of the examples is we'll be hosting a Senate town hall meeting on October 11th with the candidates for Senate District, State Senate District number 3, and we'll be doing that at the Music Recital Hall and be able to record that here at Jefferson Public Radio. So we're excited about all the collaborative opportunities that we see opening up for us here in this new facility.
Beyond the campus, one important service that JPR has always provided is the independent reporting of local news. I asked how that function fits with the activity of the commercial stations in our region.
Well, I think, the news ecosystem has been changing a bit as newspapers have kind of pulled back a little bit here and there. And always JPR has taken an issues-oriented approach to the news, and part of that is because we have the luxury of being a non-commercial service. So when you look at a news segment in Morning Edition that is produced by one of our local reporters, it's probably 4 or 5 minutes in length. So, in TV news, that just doesn't happen. There's not the time to develop those stories and to get a multitude of perspectives on an issue and cover them with a little more depth and context. So that's the angle we bring to it. We do that because we're a non-commercial service so generously supported by our listeners. And so I think that's the niche that we try to fill, is to take an issue and to explore it in a deeper way than might be possible on commercial radio or radio. Really, commercial radio news doesn't exist anymore, but on television news certainly, and newspapers certainly have done a good job with that over the years, and we would continue to partner with newspapers to try to we do that now in many ways to try to cover the region in a more meaningful way for citizens.
We're living in a time when the President of the United States calls the media the enemy of the people. And we hear terms like fake news applied in many cases. Why, in your opinion, is it important to have public radio as part of the news that people have access to?
Well, I think it's an interesting time to be in the journalism business, and I think some of the points that you make there are certainly true, and we feel it here in our own newsroom. But I think there's been a really productive civic dialogue around journalism and what it is and what it isn't. And I think that's good for democracy. And we certainly see that here, and we think that we have a very important role to play in providing local and regional coverage that has depth and context. And the difference between, there really is fake news, but it's not just news that someone doesn't like. It's really fake news. And the kind of work that we're doing, we're seeing a new energy by young people and a new interest in public radio news, especially. You're seeing a rebirth of podcasting, and audio as an art form. storytelling as an important and interesting thing for students and for young people. And so we believe that adding that journalism component, what is, enterprise journalism, and what is, fact-based journalism that has a multitude of perspectives. It's not just giving someone, here's this side, here's the other side, good luck with that. Trying to provide experts that provide context for some of the issues that face us all as members of the Ruhr Valley and the country and the world.
While news is a vital part of each of JPR's 3 channels, music is also what enriches the lives of JPR listeners. As the Jefferson Exchange engages listeners of the News and Information Service, Dave Jackson prepares for JPR's Open Air program on the Rhythm and News channel.
Yeah. All good, man. So this is where Open Air is produced, a rhythm news service throughout the day. Pretty much we've allocated each control room to a service, which makes it a little more simple. So right now we're into morning edition. Dave's going to be doing a promo in a few minutes for weather forecast in morning edition and promoting what's coming up on Open Air later today. And then he'll take over at 9 o'clock and be doing Open Air.
Open Air is a program that features contemporary music that goes far beyond commercial radio playlists. It's an eclectic blend of today's music. That includes what Wessel calls unappreciated music. Music that needs to be curated by human beings with a diverse musical background and genuine passion for the music.
This is the CD library. We're still in the CD world. There's Dave Jackson right there.
So the new facilities has room for all these music CDs. It's a lot.
Yeah, this is from classical sections to open air contemporary artists. The CD library holds about 40,000 CDs.
Wow.
So what do 40,000 CDs look like? Wanda Borland gives us a look.
Hello.
Music staff, so Don Matthews, Eric Teal, Danielle Kelly, Dave Jackson.
Those involved in music programming now have this open, airy, and connected space to do their research. A third studio brought us to the Classics and News service.
So this is where the Classics News is being programmed from right now.
As in other parts of America, public radio is the source of classical music in the JPR listening area, and this is where it comes from. Host Don Matthews welcomed us into the studio during First Concert. I couldn't help asking how Matthews manages to pronounce the names of classical composers.
I know some of them, but the interesting thing about names is that they don't follow the rules of the language, because you can pronounce your name any way you want to. So we have several tools that help us. We actually have a website that's Forvo, called Forvo, F-O-R-V-O, and you can put in a name, and then they'll have someone from that country actually say the name or say the word.
Don Matthews marked his 20th year at JPR, remembering the equipment they used back then, equipment with vacuum tubes. You won't find those in today's studios, nor will you find the 8-track size carts that used to carry everything from announcements to music. Matthews shared his memories in the Jefferson Journal, a monthly magazine available to JPR listeners. First Concert and Siskiyou Music Hall are 2 locally produced classical music shows. We'll return to Adventures in Education right after this. Trains and railroads. You'll see lots of them on Ramping Up Your English, Watch episode 1 through 32 on this station. If you've begun the process of learning English as a second language, I recommend a program called Ramping Up Your English. It's for people who've already started the process of learning English, but are at that intermediate level and are ready to ramp it up or increase their English proficiency. We come on twice a week on RVTV Voices, and we can be found at archive.org/details/roguetv. I hope you'll join me. If you want your English to get better, I hope you'll watch the program, Ramping Up Your English, right here on RVTV Voices. You're watching Adventures in Education. We're looking at the results of large-scale building spree at Southern Oregon University, especially at the new broadcast center for Jefferson Public Radio. I'm John Letts. JPR educates listeners in our region in many ways with its 3 channels. In an era when talk show means pundits yelling over each other, public radio offers talk that means something, a thoughtful exchange of ideas. From programs such as On Point, I've learned about the secretive Koch brothers and Mercers, as well as an informative news roundup every week. Locally, listeners can learn about issues beyond news coverage in our region with JPR's Jefferson Exchange. We got to visit host Jeffrey Riley during a news break. He's working on this morning with an SOU student intern named Patrick. Southern Oregon University has been the licensee of JPR stations in the past 50 years, so there's a double connection here to the mission of education, the role of SOU students, and the education of the general public in Southern Oregon and Northern California. While not in use on the day of our visit, this row of microphones suggests an invitation for people in our area to have their voices heard, a place for intelligent and even inspiring conversation. Listeners of the Jefferson Exchange hear the voices of people involved in a staggering amount of activity that distinguishes our region as a hotbed of creative ideas, from protecting the environment to organizing a symphonic performance. On the day of our visit in late August of 2018, the hot topic was wildfires and the miserable smoke they produce.
And fire conditions now and in the past. Daniel Swain is at the Center for Climate Science at UCLA. If the name sounds familiar, he joined us a few months ago to talk about the chance for precipitation whiplash in California as the planet changes. Daniel Swain, thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me back on the program.
Good to have you. Ryan Sandler joins us as well. We were just talking about the National Weather Service office in Medford in the previous segment about wildfire smoke. He is the warning coordination meteorologist at the NWS office there. Ryan, good to have you back on the program.
During this segment, Riley's guests are on the phone. Jefferson Exchange allows viewers to call in as well to join in the conversation. Riley reminded us that there's a risk in taking those phone calls.
If you're wondering about the dump truck that came with the old, came from the old studio, a student gave it to me years ago when I couldn't remember what to tell him when somebody dropped an S-bomb on the air, and we have to hit a button that makes those few seconds disappear because we're on a 10-second delay. It's the dump button. Dump truck, dump button. Oddly enough, the button is yellow too.
Jeffrey Riley is one of several announcers who ask listeners to contribute during fund drives. CEO Paul Westall says that contributions from listeners are what keeps Jefferson Public Radio on the air.
Well, support from listeners and the community is the lifeblood of what we do. We get a small amount of money from Southern Oregon University as our licensee, around 10% of our operating budget. Around 12 to 14% comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting through a grant. The federal government provides a grant, and then we have to qualify for that grant every year. And the rest of it is all local support. So around 75% of the funds that we use to operate comes from local sources, from individuals, businesses, right here in the communities that we broadcast to. So local support, fuels it, most of the things that we do, most of the things we're capable of doing, from our news coverage to the national programs, purchasing those and getting the rights to broadcast those here in Southern Oregon and Northern California, and covers all the music programming, all the expenses of this very far-flung and expensive broadcast plant, which we've got one of the biggest in the country with 23 stations and 36 translators. It's quite the enterprise to keep it all functioning well. But local support is the absolute lifeblood of what we do. The Ashland community especially has been so generous. Ashland individual listeners contribute over $300,000 a year to the station. With 20,000 people, that's over $15 for every man, woman, and child. That's on a national level. That's really off the scale of public support. So we are so grateful to folks who contribute and enable us to do what we do every day.
Paul Westall shares some closing thoughts about JPR's new facilities.
For me, I've been here for 28 years now. I started in 1990, and it's very personally and professionally gratifying to see our staff in a facility that is really worthy of their talent. And I guess that's one of the big takeaways that I have coming into this new facility. And I guess the second would be, in many ways, this is a culmination of a chapter and a project in JPR's history. We've worked on this facility now for about 2.5 years, from beginning to end. And before that, a lot of dreaming and planning and fundraising and the things that were necessary to make it possible. But in many ways, it's a new beginning. It's a new chapter in our ability to serve the community and to think more broadly about how we might do that. This facility gives us new technical capabilities. It'll give us new human resources that we'll be able to attract a different type of people, I think, here in this new place. And we're looking forward to new ways that we might be able to serve the community that we haven't thought of before. So I think while it's easy to celebrate and sit back and say, wow, breathe deep and say we've really accomplished something, I think the most excitement is in looking forward and seeing how we might serve the community in new and better ways. So I think for many of us, we're trying to re-envision what JPR is in the future, and reinvent ways that we might be able to serve the community in a better way.
Along those lines, I asked Westall if the live performance studio was unique to radio stations in our region.
Yeah, I think, some large stations have a facility like that. But kind of the stations in our mid-size range, I think it's a special aspect of this facility, and we're really glad we were able to carve it into it. As you saw, we've been able to sort of provide this movable glass wall as well, so that we can program out into the campus and engage our audience and our contributors and our listeners in a more meaningful face-to-face way, rather than just being an electronic service. So yeah, we're thrilled at all the potential. I think we're trying to figure out how we might use it. We have some ideas on how we want to use it, but I think some of these are going to evolve, and I think maybe the best idea we haven't thought about yet, but that the facility itself will kind of reveal that as we start to use it and start to take feedback and see how things work. We're thrilled to be able to we'll have a piano in the space. It'll be a Steinway M Studio Grand piano that a family has made available to us. So we'll be adding that to that live performance studio, and we're going to share that with piano students at the university. So only the most accomplished students will be able to practice on that. But it would be a cool thing to be able to open those glass doors, and you'll be walking across campus one day and hear, some student playing beautiful Rachmaninoff on a Steinway Grand in our studio. So we're partnering with various different campus academic areas as a way to maximize the use of the facility when we're not using it. So that's another sort of value I think that we bring to the facility is trying to make the most of it, both for our listeners and for students.
Did I get it right that we have a greater interest now in our times in
practicing true journalism?
You do have that right. I think that's kind of an anecdotal study, but the Poynter Institute, which studies journalism, has done a number of written pieces on this topic, and we see students that are coming out of all kinds of different fields that are newly interested in audio and audio storytelling and in journalism, and I do think part of that is. We're understanding as a society that freedom of the press and a working press is not just a luxury. I mean, it's in the Constitution for a reason. It's an essential element of the checks and balances on government, and that's only if we have a strong and independent press. And I think students are seeing that, given what's happening in government right now, and have a keener interest in this area. So I think we're going to be part of that burgeoning interest. And we hope to be able to help mentor the next generation of really high quality journalists.
So this is the Network Operations Center. And this is equipment that was scattered around various rooms in the old facility. And now it's centralized here in this room. And what's cool about this is it's got a redundant HVAC system. So if one fails, the other keeps it cool enough where the equipment doesn't fry, which is we've lost an HVAC system and you've got to open doors and get fans and try not to lose a bunch of expensive equipment. And the other thing that is a big upgrade in this room is that it's all connected to the generator. So you can see all the red plugs on the second floor. All of these red faceplates signify that it's on the generator. So that at a time of an earthquake or we lost commercial power, we would now be a resource for the community. In the other facility, if we lost commercial power, we had no way effectively to stay on the air more than about 30 or 40 minutes. So now we have the ability to be on for hours. So if there is a public emergency, we'll now be a vital resource for the community to tell people where to get fresh water and what to expect.
So that's part of the emergency broadcast system they use?
Correct.
I don't know if they still call it that or not.
Yeah, emergency broadcast system, yeah. So this production room is still a work in progress, but these two rooms are the same here for news. So they'll come in here, do their own voice work, cut their audio files to the server, jump out on their workstation, put headphones on, and do all our digital editing out in the space out here.
Wow.
So therefore this can be, all these will give us, these two rooms will give us some incredible new capacity to do local and regional news.
So is this replace the reel-to-reel recorders?
We didn't have any reel-to-reels in the other, well, we had a few.
Carts or whatever?
Yeah. But it's all set up to be really, to help us work efficiently in the digital environment.
Yeah.
Which is great, because a lot of the gear has gotten smaller and more powerful. And this is a production studio as well. It's sort of the workhorse of, producing station announcements throughout the day. This also can go on the air as a backup control room, so that if we have to do work on a control board, we can take that room off the air and put this one on, so that the engineer doesn't have to come in at 2 a.m. and do their work while less people are listening.
Now and in the past. Daniel Swain is at the Center for Climate Science at UCLA. If the name sounds familiar, he joined us a few months ago to talk about the chance for precipitation whiplash in California as the planet changes. Daniel Swain, thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks for having me back on the program.
Good to have you. Ryan Sandler joins us as well. We were just talking about the National Weather Service office in Medford in the previous segment about wildfire smoke. He is the warning coordination meteorologist at the NWS office there. Ryan, good to have you back on the program.
Good morning, Jeffrey.
So just for either of you, right off the bat, Ryan, were you surprised to find the amount of fire activity so far this year, and when in the year it is taking place?
Well, normally we would be very surprised, but we always key in on lightning, and we knew how dry things were leading into our lightning outbreak in mid-July. And once we had over 3,000 lightning strikes in the region, we knew we were in for big trouble.
Yeah, there were a bunch, and that was the July 15th lightning storm was the one that did. How many did you say?
If you just look at Siskiyou and Modoc County in California and most of southern Oregon, we had over about 3,250 lightning strikes, and those are ground strikes. So there are even more strikes within the clouds and cloud to air, but that's just the ones that matter to us.
You're watching Adventures in Education. You can watch an archive of today's show and others by going to this webpage and following the link to archives. Watch RVTV on Channel 15 or 182, or visit our website for the next Adventures in Education. I'm John Letts.